There are two kinds of characters for every Souls-like game, masochists and people who hate themselves. As someone who has proudly beaten every Souls-type game there is, I can confidently say that I fall into the third category, mentally ill. Before we get into the spring of things, I'll just lay out a quick groundwork for those of you who are unfamiliar with the genre. The term Souls-like is a reference to Dark Souls, a game widely regarded as one of the most difficult challenges known to man. This is followed closely by Dark Souls 2, a game widely regarded as one of the most difficult challenges unknown to man. Basically, the Souls series is a role-playing game where you take the role of the victim. It's characterized by slow, methodical combat, buff enemies, an emphasis on dodging, and a health bar that makes you think the character was born with glass bones and paper skin. Lies of P fits this format almost perfectly. The game opens with the main character, P, gaining consciousness at the back of a random train car. He's just like me, except I was at the bright age of 7 and was eating dirt at the time. It only takes 5 steps for him to meet the first character. He's a cricket, and a Gemini, which seems less important than knowing his name, but go off, King. I'm a Cancer. At the end of the hall, you have 3 starting classes: Sweeper, Bastard, and the one that nobody cares about. The main choice really boils down to whether or not you want to be a strength or dexterity build. There are some fast strength weapons and heavy dexterity weapons, but generally, strength means unga bunga big stick, and dexterity means you're a loser. Sadly, P looks like too much of a twink for me to realistically see him holding a greatsword, so I went with dexterity. The tutorial introduces us to the main story, which I'll quickly summarize now. A long time ago, some people accidentally found a magical blue crystal and something happened. I skipped this cutscene accidentally, so I'm just gonna pretend to live react to it now. Wow. This makes sense to me. The crystal, Ergo, kicked off what is basically a new industrial revolution, with the city of Krat becoming the central producer of robots known as puppets. Eventually, the puppets got tired of having boxes knocked out of their hands by asshole scientists and decided to rise up, violently murdering everybody in sight. It's funny because you could find a bunch of lore notebooks and half of them are just the author screaming and crying about how the puppets are breaking the rules by beating their friends to death, which, like, yeah buddy, I get it, puppets shouldn't be able to kill, but I'd be more worried about having my skull caved in than yelling at the factory manager. By the start of the game, the puppets have almost completely wiped out the city, leaving the only signs of organic life the corpses of horses.
Rehab was supposed to be a fresh start, but no matter how many starts I get...
Eventually we find Hotel Krat, the last sanctuary for the, 3 people that are alive.
But we have to find him first. He was last seen on Elysian Boulevard.
The 2 people that are alive. We rescue Geppetto, the creator of all puppets, and while he explains deep lore details, let me draw your attention to this sign. Puppet Purge used to say APAB, or all puppets are bastards, ripping off the ACAB movement. Apparently the coward developers removed it because they didn't want to be political in any way. This just fails completely, because now the only thing I can think about is puppet racism. Imagine hating somebody because their gears are a different color and not because they wear funny hats. Now all I can think about is a DLC where P hooks up with Romeo and they have to face puppet homophobia.
I know what you are!
Developer's note, if you guys need any writers, you can find a sample of my work on Wattpad. P kills another man in cold blood and makes his way to the puppet factory, where we discover the crazed puppets aren't actually broken, but the rules have been overridden by a king of the puppets. Naturally, this leads to a zombie-infested church wasteland where it... Wait, is this really the same game? Yes? Oh, okay. Damn, alright. In a true Dark Souls fashion, there are multiple poisonous swamps, leading to a really weird boss fight against the bishop. Thankfully, P is safe from the worst of it, because even though he looks 17, statistically speaking, that is way too old for a member of the clergy. We got off with just a couple licks and face sittings, and discover that this infection is a late stage of the petrification disease, which was ravaging the city in silence. Next we head for the back streets of Yarnell, where burly British men club me over the head and stab me for not being born in Yorkshire and having a foreign-sounding name, and wait, this is the wrong game again. Truth be told, this is only how far I am into the game. I mean, yeah, I know it's been out for a while, but I'm having trouble finishing it. You see, I was on the grind day 1, but for some reason my neurodivergent ass thought it would be funny if I beat it all in one try. You could guess how well that's been going. The Wikipedia is also only so helpful because it's at the point where I look up a character and their description is, wow, they are definitely in this game, I think. So from here on, I'm going entirely off of cutscenes I've watched on YouTube and what the funny voices in my head have told me. The King of Puppets is fat. Actually, he's a twink now. His name is Romeo, and all he wants is the freedom to be homoerotic with P.
Get pregnant! Get pregnant, you fucking bitch! Get fucking pregnant, you fucking filthy whore!
Not really, he was just friends with the person P used to be. Also, P used to be a person. His name was Carlo, he was Geppetto's son, but he kinda died, so Geppetto took his memories and stored them inside the puppet P. Linguini shows up and turns into a hand. I haven't mentioned him yet because his most significant contribution to the story is right now when I stab him to death. Then Geppetto reveals that he's actually an asshole and doesn't care about anyone's life except for his son, Carlo, who is once again dead. Geppetto started the puppet frenzy, maybe, to steal a funny hat, I made that up, and revive his son. True. You could choose to die and let Carlo be revived at this point, which is really dumb. I mean, you're dumb if you chose this. Or you could fight back. The final boss is some guy. It's just a random puppet Geppetto controls, and then he doesn't control. It's just a dude. I mean, it's just a whole ass dude. It has one of those things too that I hate, where even if you win, the cutscene shows you losing, but Geppetto sacrifices himself to stop the nameless puppet from destroying the heart that has Carlo's soul in it. This is where the good and bad endings diverge. In the bad ending, Geppetto calls P a racial slur and dies. In the good ending, Geppetto changes his mind about P, calling him a good boy. Then he dies. This truly is the most ending to ever ending. What determines your ending is tied to one of the most unique features about Lies of P, the lying mechanic. Basically, for every major interaction, you could choose to lie or tell the truth. To get the true ending, you have to lie every time, alongside having to listen to every record and doing a bunch of random puzzles. To get the other ending, you have to do literally anything else. Even one truth-telling is... yeah, it's not built very well. Really, this is pretty disappointing to me. Aside from the fact that lying barely changes anything about the ending, it really doesn't have much of an effect on anything else as well. There's a part where a survivor asks if you know anywhere safe. I wanted to tell him about the hotel because he seems like a normal guy and was open to trade, so I figured he was nice enough. But because I was going for the true ending, I had to lie and send him to the second most puppet-infested zone known to man. In a game like Bloodborne, if you sent an NPC to the wrong safe house, they would just die, and the rewards would change depending on whether they survived at the real safe house and provided long-term services, or just died and dropped valuable items immediately. But no, he just kind of survived anyway, and when I told him to go to the most puppet-infested zone, he just said no and went to the hotel anyway, so like, literally nothing came of this. The main gimmicks in this game come in the form of combat. First, P has a metal left arm, which shouldn't mean anything because his entire body is made out of metal. Still, this arm is special because it can punch things, and punch things harder, and shoot fire sometimes. It can only be used a few times before resting, but the Legion arm can be customized in a bunch of ways. It could be a gun, a grappling hook, a war crime. Honestly, it's just like the Shinobi prosthetic from Sekiro. Also, like in Sekiro, there are no shields, but every weapon can be used to block. If you block just before an attack, it creates a perfect parry, which can set up enemies to be knocked down for a strong attack. On the other hand, if you're an epic Sigma male and don't care about parrying or dodging, you could just swing around a giant knife 7 times your size and just hope you hit them first. One thing I could appreciate is that even though healing is limited in this game, if you block with a larger weapon, your health isn't automatically gone. Some of it is kept as guard regen. Basically, if you attack quickly enough, you can get that health back, which promotes a fast attack style. That might seem like the exact opposite incentive of perfect parrying, and it is. I think the goal was to make both playstyles equally effective. And like my many attempts at finally watching One Piece, it kind of worked. No fucking way he gets back up. Oh my god. Oh my god. He's really gonna do it. This is fucking crazy. This scene would go so hard if I could speak Japanese. Both styles kind of directly rip off 2 games I mentioned, Bloodborne and Sekiro. Bloodborne in terms of the fast, constant stabbing, constant dodging style with the health regen, whereas Sekiro in that it almost entirely relies on slow, calm timing of perfect parries in order to break down an enemy's guard. The difference is in those respective games, since the developers knew what style the player would be forced to use, enemies could be designed around it. It's kind of like locking a shy, insecure boy in a room with both a goth and a Hello Kitty girl. Even if he brings a crucifix to stop one of them, he's still doomed. The worst instance of this has to be against the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. I didn't really mention them because they aren't really important, but their boss fight was incredibly difficult for me for all the wrong reasons. I used the booster glaive at that point in the game because it was a badass greatsword with a jet attached to it, but Guts here was so fast that even after his heaviest combo of attacks, I couldn't get off a single charged attack of my own without either being staggered out of it or getting hit in return. I tried again and again to just sneak in light hits, but eventually the fight went on for so long, I found out that if you perfect parried him like 15 times in a row, his sword just breaks and he does like 2 damage. Not fun. On the other end of the spectrum, while parry builds are undoubtedly more consistent, there are still plenty of issues you have to worry about. A bunch of bosses have absurdly high stagger, they are crazy long attack combos that you need to block every hit of, and not to mention not having any friends or human interaction. I think this is the main reason that everyone seems to think Lies of P is one of the hardest Souls-like games out there. You just can't be perfect at one playstyle, or even good at both. You need to be perfect at parrying, dodging, waiting, rushing, tanking, baiting. Even with all that being said, Lies of P does do an incredible job of getting the pacing and weight of a Souls game perfect. Arguably better than the original at times. Animation canceling is smooth, parrying windows are generally larger than I'm used to, and the movement never really felt clunky. If you really needed to anyway, you could probably get through the game fine just by brute force, even if I think it would be a bit unfair to expect that, so... Overall, while I would never recommend this game to anyone who either does not like the Soul series or hasn't played any of the Soul games prior, as somewhat of a veteran of the series, I actually see this game as a worthy successor to be put up there with the other spin-off games like Bloodborne, Sekiro, and that one Roblox ripoff.